Okay, so what I like to do, I like to give people a broad. Let me share my screen with you now. I like to give people a broad understanding of semantic processing before we really get into the AppNexus environment. I assume, by the way, and please speak up because we have Domenico, Lucas, Milena, and Nick online for our guests. So not so many people today that we can't all have a joint conversation. But I make the assumption everybody online today is an AppNexus user in some way, or if you are not, you're thinking about becoming an AppNexus user for your ad environment or your ad ecosystem. That's our discussion point today. And our departure point as ADmantX is the semantic processing of content and the use of the resulting semantic data to help target ads, to make ads perform better, to make them safer in the AppNexus environment. So I am going to show you first a little bit about the background technology itself. And that is a very rich and tried and true type of technology, semantic technology that we have been developing not always as ADmantX, but as a forerunner company to ADmantX for nearly 20 years. And sorry. What I'm going to show you is how to process. I'll do one sentence at a time so that you are able to see how the underlying technology understands content. The goal here is for a machine literally to read and understand. So we don't just get frequency counts and proximity statistics between keywords. That is a typical keyword or shallow linguistic approach to understanding or comprehending content. What we're going to try to do instead is get down to the real nitty-gritty of content, to have a machine literally, again, read and understand. So let's try it like this. Something like the following. Hopefully you can see my screen. I hope it's not too squeezed for you. My car eats gas when I step on the gas. Now I'm going to ask the system to process this one sentence. And what you'll see on your screen is the outcome of all that processing, just this one sentence, half a dozen words or so. In the gray boxes around the outside, you'll see the categorization of that content, motor vehicles, engineering, chemistry. Down below, you'll see some of the connective tissue, how words relate to one another as a build-up process. So the way you read this portion here is something eats. What is it that eats? It's my car that eats. If my car eats, what does it eat? It eats gas. It's called a semantic triple, a subject, a predicate, and an object. Down in the lower left, you'll see lots of other kinds of markup, adjectives, noun, verbs, adverbs, and so forth. These are parts of speech, if you will. A slightly higher concept would be GN, a group noun, so an adjective and a noun together become a group noun. C is conjunction, and so on. Red and then green indicating a complex sentence. So I could put a period right after gas here, and I could actually have two sentences rather than one. So all of these are build-up processes, but in the way that we process process content semantically also indicates the need for establishment or assignment of a definition behind every word. So as I wander across these words, you will see a definition for each word. And this is a very common problem. All nouns, all verbs in any language, in every language for that matter, have two or more definitions. It's why we bother to write dictionaries. To get to true comprehension, you must establish the definition, the intended meaning or use of the word. So I've used this example because, number one, I've got the word gas in the sentence twice, and it just so happens that the word gas has 12 different definitions. So in this case, we're begging the question, does the machine get this gas correct? And I would say it does. This gas is gasoline. And this gas is the gas pedal or the accelerator. Now you might ask, how is it that we're capable of doing that? What's behind this is called a semantic network. It is every word, and in this case English, every word in English, but more importantly, all the definitions of every word, and further, the relationships between words. So for example here, you see the gasoline that we started with is connected to, has a semantic meaning relationship with the word fuel, just like it does with premium gas. So this cut, or these relationships here, are hierarchical. So super meaning and sub meaning, if you will. And if you do this faithfully, you surround an entire language. Think of it this way. A dictionary is a book of words and their definitions. A thesaurus is a rewrite of the dictionary organized by synonyms, different words that have the same meanings. So there's a synonym relationship between words in that book. We took the same principle, but we did it 65 more times. We rewrote the dictionary 65 more times to establish all the relationships between words, this one being hierarchical. And there are lots of those. Let's look at another one. Sorry, let me do it this way. New York City. And if I ask to look at New York City from a geography perspective, the list you see on the left and right, the connective words, the words that have a geographic relationship to New York City, are New York State and Bronx and Queens, or Mid-Atlantic states, and so forth. And we can go up one level in the chain, and now that I'm at New York State, I see all the counties, I see all the features, I see all the cities, the zip codes, probably have some rivers in here, parks, so forth. All right, right there at the top you saw, sorry, mountains. Adirondack Mountains are connected to New York because they are located inside New York State. So a lot of different kinds of relationships is how our brains work. When we learn a word, we slot it into our brains. We not only slot the word, but we slot into our brains the meaning behind the intended use, how the word was used, so that when we traverse content, we can deduce or make some deductions about this gas being the throttle or the accelerator, as opposed to this gas being gasoline or a fuel. All right, let me stop there for a second and ask if there are questions about what I'm showing you. Sometimes this is deeply technical, and for those of you in the room who are technical and would like to ask questions, please go ahead.
Hopefully now we can fix it up. What do they do?
So any questions at all is fine. All right, hey Nick. Nick Frizzell, you're the guy in the room that seems to have the most background noise. I'm going to put you on mute. So if you need to talk, you're gonna have to put your hand up in the chat room of the poll between your typing and people talking in the background. All right. All right. So now let's move on. By the way, this gets interesting if you do something like the following. Buttons on my lousy Motorola. Sorry, I guess I should say Google now, right? Google cell phone are actually really great. So if I process this sentence instead as an example of social media, let's say, understanding that lousy Google cell phone is pretty easy because all those words are in the right order, in the correct logical order. The hard one is this. It's great. And as a human reader, we can easily see that it's referring to the buttons. But getting a machine to get this right, to untangle the sentiment in the sentence, is very difficult. There are two notions here. One is negative and one is positive. In this case, we want to understand what is positive, what's negative, so that we can attribute the correct kind of sentiment. So great here is referring only to one aspect, the small aspect of the product, as opposed to lousy being about the entire brand. Most keyword or statistical systems would wash this out. They'd see one lousy, one great, one positive, one negative. Can't really tell where they're pointing or have trouble understanding where they're pointing, so must be neutral. That's not how we would score this as an example. All right, let's take this up a notch now and go look at some real content for a second. Let's all right, let's go here. Yes, all the rage about Yahoo buying Tumblr. Okay. So if I took the same principle we just went through and I raised it up and said now an entire page of content at a time, so what I'm going to do is take this URL and go directly and feed it to our web service, and it will mark up the page and send back the data. And so that's what you're seeing here, a recreation of the page, the title, the picture, content. And what you're seeing is the same semantic processing principle, but what we've done now instead is dramatically expanded across the entire page, number one. But we're also channeling 4 types of data at the same time. The first you see are what are called entities, so people, places, and things. So here's Matt Mullenweg, David Cart, Marissa Mayer, and so forth. Tumblr is the company, investors, and users, and money. So time, people, places, things, companies, brands, so forth. These end up being little bits of targeting data. Think geography just alone, for example. So individual little bits of targeting data inside the content itself. Like we showed before also, across all of this content, what buckets does all the content fit into? And so you see these are standard IAB categorizations, starting at the top, but driven 5 levels deep. For more specifications, you see web advertising, finance, business, and so on. There are emotions, a third channel of data about this page. So generally speaking, this is positive in its sentiment. The fourth channel of data, which is where we're going in the AppNexus environment, are custom categories. How can I take any standard categories, emotions, and these entities, and combine them into something wholly new, and apply them and use them almost immediately in the AppNexus environment. That's the application that I'm going to show you today inside the AppNexus environment. And so these names up here are actually JavaScript variables that land on the page. They're triggers, yes, no answers for this particular page, and are attached to individual ad campaigns. In effect, telling the ad server that this page would be safe for the appreciation income or après-ski campaign. And that may be both a combination of positive targeting aspects as well as things that the advertiser wishes to avoid and are not present on this particular page. I encourage you to do this, by the way, from our website. You're welcome to do that at any time. Let me just show you how you get there. Copy a URL, go to ADmantX.com. There's a link down here. It says try live demo. You can paste any URL you like in this box and press go, and you'll get the exact same thing that I just showed you. If you want to see the raw data, by the way, use the little plus mark up here, and this will expand out and will show you all the raw data. You have to use a lot of pluses to get down to the raw stuff if you want to see it. Everything's there, everything's scored, all the children, all the parents, up and down the chains of meanings that we talked about earlier. We're all here. Play around with it, it's kind of fun. All right. On the AppNexus environment, what I'd like to show you now is exactly how this is done in a near real-time environment. So let's say, and you can find this application in the marketplace, by the way, the AppNexus App Marketplace. You will see us listed under the data providers on the home page under ADmantX, but then in the subsections under contextual or data providers, you will find a simple button. You're welcome to install the app in your AppNexus console if you're already a user. And you do exactly what I'm going to show you now. So let's say that you would like to get your hands around the incredible quantity of content flowing through AppNexus on any given day. I believe the number is something north of 15 billion impressions per day. We are processing a very high percentage of all the content flowing through AppNexus. And so when we do what I'm going to show you here, you can have confidence that there will be a lot of coverage overall for what you're trying to do. Excuse me one second, I have a very bad head cold. Sorry. All right. What you see on the screen in front of you are the IAB categorizations. The ones in green would be the top level IAB way of arranging content in the eyes of advertisers. In addition to that, those other channels of data that I talked about previously. So you'll see some emotions. Emotions are in red. Purchase intent are in blue. And then there are some other things like motivations and sentiment are in the deep red or the orange. So these are additional ways in which you can target for or against any particular content in AppNexus. Let's keep it simple for a minute and take a look at technology and computing. This is cut off at the bottom. I apologize. We'll have to resize these. We've added a few menu items here of late, which I'll show you. But when you look at this, this is a very broad category of technology and computing. At the bottom it says expand, so that link will still work. And what you'll see is the next level down in terms of the categorization inside. So top, broad category technology and computing, and these categories are inside technology and computing. And again, we can expand below that. So here's software. You see these categories within that. So technology and computing, software, and then conferencing, graphics, and so forth. All right. So that's a simple navigation example. What if I wanted to build some a unique matching algorithm for a particular campaign? Let's say I have a travel site who says we have a banner ad and a campaign talking about cruising, taking a cruise with your children. So it turns out we have traveling with kids. We must have that as part of our targeting. And then under transport, we also have sea travel. So we must have that. So what I'm doing is making some quick selections. And if I resume, I see the two categories I'm targeting now. Traveling with kids on the ocean. I might go back to the top and say, you know, when we do that, I want our ad only to land on content that talks about traveling with children on the ocean, and it must have a positive sentiment. Likewise, I don't want any negative emotions, so not to have here. So again, if I look at my criteria, it has to be positive, can't be negative, traveling with kids on a cruise. I could add some other things on here as well. I might want to, maybe the kids want to think about some kind of sports while they're on the cruise. So let's, we could say water skiing, for example. And here we could soften the condition and just make it nice to have. So it's not required to be on the page. It'd be nice to be. It would be nice if it was there. Same with, let's say, surfing or body surfing and sailing and so forth. All right. So again, I've got lots of conditions. Now I might want to save this and simply say cruising with my kids. AppNexus says, okay, I'll take it. And then I've got cruising with my kids. Now, if I went down here and I published this, it would become a segment, a unique